Hi, everyone. I hope you're doing well. Right, that just gets right to it. The war appears to be back on. I mean, it may be back on. It's sort of on, but then again, not on. We'll get into that in a minute. But in addition to it being on or not on, the village idiot Donald Trump is the weakest geopolitically I have ever seen him. He is unbelievably pathetic right now. He is his response right now to the exchange of fire between the Iranians and the Israelis is pathetic. They are ignoring him. I mean, there was indication moments ago, literally moments ago, that maybe they weren't ignoring him, but it appears that certainly the Israelis are ignoring him. I don't know if Netanyahu is done, and maybe Netanyahu has figured he can get all he can. He's achieved all he can or all he wants to in terms of manipulating the village idiot Donald Trump. I don't know, but and the Iranians, I am sure they will be done as well in moments. But let me just pull up the live streams or the live chats, and then we'll get right into it. If you can just bear with me for a moment. I just want to. We're on YouTube, Twitch, and YouTube, Twitch, and Substack today. Twitch. Okay, hang on. Let's just pull up Substack. I've got YouTube up. There we go. Back YouTube, today. Twitch. Okay, we've got Substack, and let's just get Twitch going here. All right, so I've got all the streams up right now. So welcome. Thank you for joining me. So here we are right now. My two news sources that I'm going to use predominantly for this particular live are going to be Al Jazeera and NBC News. Maybe we'll bounce a little bit around as we kind of get into it. But here's where we stand. I'll give you a nutshell. I'll give you the overall overview. If you haven't been paying attention to the media, we'll talk. Let me just close my emails up here so that we don't have to hear all those sounds of the emails coming through. Okay. So I woke up this morning probably just like you did. I had no idea what was happening overnight. At least here I'm on the East Coast in the U.S., just outside of New York. So I wasn't really following the news. I try not to look at the news first thing when I wake up. I try to meditate a little bit. I journal a little bit. I sort of do other things to feel better about life and to cope effectively. So I took a few minutes and then did all my work, maybe half an hour, 40 minutes. And then as I was prepping to take my son, getting ready to go downstairs because I've got to make breakfast for my son, I've got to get him to get his lunch ready and get him over to school. So my early mornings are generally quite busy. And my wife is always kind of busy. She gets actually up at like 4 o'clock in the morning. 3:45. She does a lot of meditation and all that. She's into that stuff. So she's kind of wrapping up her efforts, her wellness efforts by the time I get downstairs, and it's, the morning hustle and bustle begins, which is a good hustle and bustle. So I don't usually glance at the news, but for whatever reason, I opted to this morning, and I saw that as we know, the Israelis have been consistently bombing Lebanon. Even though there's been a supposed ceasefire that the village idiot Donald Trump created between the Israelis and and Hezbollah, that never really happened. Israel continued to bomb Lebanon. It is very clear now that the Israelis want to turn Lebanon into what they've done to Gaza. There's no question about it. I realize that Hezbollah and the Israelis are mortal enemies for decades and decades now. And they want to have this final battle, I guess. It's highly doubt that this is going to be the end of it, but this epic battle. But the amount of innocent people they're killing in the process is staggering. And as I said with Gaza, with the genocide, and let me make that clear to my fellow Jewish American friends, I am Jewish and I am an American citizen. It is indeed it has indeed been a genocide in Gaza. That is what the Israelis have engaged in. it does seem like there is an effort, and the war in genocide, the continued murder of Palestinians hasn't stopped yet. The Israelis are continuing to do that in Gaza. Over 1,000 Palestinians have been killed since the war ended. Whether or not those are Hamas or not remains to be seen. Certainly the children that have been killed are not Hamas fighters. It's irrespective. That's not the focus of today's live. So the intent clearly in Lebanon is to create another Gaza. It seems like that's what Netanyahu is hell-bent on doing, and he's also certainly hell-bent on protecting himself because his corruption trial has been delayed yet again. So as long as there's a war in place, Netanyahu is able to cling to power and thus delay potential justice coming for him in his own country, and he's able to certainly maintain his freedom. So I would argue that from a political point of view and a personal point of view, Netanyahu certainly needs the war to continue for his own benefit, political and personal. But anyway, so the Israelis have consistently been hitting Lebanon. They've argued these are legitimate Hezbollah targets. The Lebanese Hezbollah, and to a lesser extent, the Lebanese government themselves have argued that these are not hitting a suburban area of Beirut. Is not where there are plenty of civilians, is not a legitimate target. The Iranians have argued since Donald Trump declared a pretend ceasefire with them, have argued the Iranians haven't changed their negotiating position at all since the supposed ceasefire started. It's been the same 10-point plan today that it was when the village idiot Donald Trump, desperate to get out of the war, accepted the 10-point plan as a basis of negotiation. The Iranians' 10-point plan then subsequently came out and lied to us all literally within hours of accepting the plan and posting on social media that he accepted the plan as a startup for negotiations, then making up this laughable nonsense that there's some other 10-point plan that he's going to be, that they're going to be negotiating from. The 10-point plan that he originally was given, that was thrust upon him by the Iranians, apparently a few hours later, the village idiots, Donald Trump magically decided that was indeed not the real 10-point plan. There was a different 10-point plan. And the Iranians, I guess, had given two 10-point plans. He never kind of made that clear, though. It was just a lie that the idiot made up to do what he does. So, but the Iranians' plan has never really shifted very much. It's been the same plan. And part of that requirement that the Iranians insisted on for the ceasefire with the U.S. was that it was a region-wide ceasefire, and the Israelis would stop bombing the Lebanese. They would stop fighting with Hezbollah, and that has not happened. The Iranians, I guess, strategically, they have been managing the PR war with the U.S. and winning it. They have been managing the economic war with the U.S. and been winning it, thus far giving them the power to manage the physical war with the U.S. And although they can't compete with the U.S. military, they have won the war. The Iranians, if the war ends today, the Iranians win. They're the winners. No question about it. They control the Strait of Hormuz. They're getting paid in many instances, for which they weren't before, paid a hell of a lot of money that they're splitting with Oman for any boat that comes through the Strait of Hormuz. They look like the adults in the room. Because we're led by the village idiot Donald Trump, who is an imbecile. We look like an immature imbecile. We look like the children. Israel clearly, whether you believe it or not, or whether you like it or not, it doesn't really matter. Israel comes across as the aggressors to most of the world. Israel, the International Criminal Court. Well, this was from Gaza, but that Benjamin Netanyahu has been charged with crimes against humanity. I can't imagine there won't be additional charges in the future for the behavior in Lebanon. I would be stunned. We'll see. I mean, maybe if the war ends soon, there won't be. But irrespective, the Iranians' 10-point plan has been the same ever since they submitted it to the imbecile, and that included a cessation of hostilities between the Israelis and Hezbollah, Basically, Israel needs to stop bombing Lebanon. Israel hasn't stopped that. It's clear that the Iranians used that as a pretext, saying there was a massive bombing recently that killed several civilians, including children, in the suburbs of Beirut. Whether that was a red line for Iran or whether it was a pretext, Iran used that yesterday as an excuse to send drones and missiles, I think more ballistic missiles, probably not drones, into Israel. Israel shot them all down, or almost all of them. I think a few of them went down in areas that were, where nobody was hurt, thankfully. The Israelis responded by attacking what they say are military sites, and we don't have any reason to refute that now. At least I haven't seen any reporting to refute that. A couple of military sites in Iran. Iran responded subsequently. The Israelis responded. The village idiot then, Donald Trump, came out and put out a True Social post that said something along the lines of, "You better stop. I'm telling Israel and I'm telling Iran, you need to stop. You better stop. Stop it right now. You better cut it out. Cut it out." Or whatever. They didn't cut it out. Shortly thereafter, the Iranians did make an announcement that they would cease hostilities, and I think it was just a strategic announcement. It wasn't like, I don't think they were listening to the orders of the imbecile. They've shown every indication that they have no interest in the orders of Donald Trump, the imbecile. Considering how they've mocked him, humiliated him, manipulated him, used him, and put themselves in a better position now than they were before the war. Considering how they did all that, it is clear to me, perhaps you may disagree, and I welcome that, but it is clear to me that when a short time ago, like about an hour and a half ago, when the Iranians said that they are ready to cease, that they are going to cease firing on the Israelis, it wasn't in response to the village idiot Donald Trump's threats, right? Because they have shown they're not afraid of him. It was clearly a strategic effort to manipulate the idiot a little bit more and potentially to, again, put themselves in a better strategic position in terms of the PR war, because they probably knew full well that the Israelis weren't done. And the Israelis weren't done. They were, and I wouldn't have expected I don't agree with what the Israelis are doing. It's abhorrent, but I certainly wouldn't. It would be laughable to think that whatever the Israelis' end game, whatever Netanyahu's end game is in Lebanon, whether that is to completely eradicate Hezbollah by basically annexing the country or annexing a portion of the country, and turning the entire country into rubble to the extent that they're capable of it. Sorry, guys, I have a little bit of allergies going on. Or whether it is to turn it into a Gaza, completely create, refocus on a genocide and create a PR campaign around that genocide to maybe engage in sort of an ethnic cleansing routine. I don't know how that would work in Lebanon. It was obvious through the village idiot Donald Trump that the effort was to move all the Palestinians out of Gaza and send them to other places so that the U.S. or Israel would get full control of Gaza, and the village idiot Donald Trump and his idiot son-in-law, Jared Kushner, could put beachfront property in Gaza, which is irrefutable. They said they were going to do it. So again, anybody, even from my community, the Jewish American community, who's going to argue that was the intent, I mean, we can debate it all day long. The receipts are there. The village idiot talked over and over and over again about turning Gaza into a beachfront resort, period. Kushner talked about buying property in Gaza and building it up, right, for himself. The village idiot offered and tried to spin it like it wasn't ethnic cleansing, but asked Jordan and other countries in the Middle East to take the Palestinians, just to take them. And he spun it by saying it's going to be impossible to rebuild. They're never going to be, so they should just take them. They're going to have a better life.
We'll take over Gaza, and they're going to have a better life wherever they go. It's going to be fantastic. But it was ethnic cleansing, ethnic cleansing, ethnic cleansing. That's all it ever was. So whether or not that is what Netanyahu's intent is, whether that's what he sold Donald Trump when Lindsey Graham was coaching Netanyahu prior, there's plenty of credible reporting from credible news outlets about this as well, that Lindsey Graham was actively coaching Benjamin Netanyahu how to convince the idiot, how to manipulate the idiot, Donald Trump, to join him in his war in Iran, that Netanyahu was able to abandon and let us fight it for him until the idiot got cold feet because his personal approval ratings had tanked so far, and the approval of the war had tanked so far, and drunken Pete Hegseth and the rest of the dingbats in the administration fucked up the war effort so miraculously. I don't know if miracles can be negative, so maybe that's the word. Maybe that's the word, spectacularly, because spectacular is often great, but can also be horrific. Whatever the case may be, if that was my point was, if that was the original deal, if that was part of the original, if convincing the village idiot that he's going to get a piece of Lebanon as well was part of the original deal, it's certainly possible. We may never know. But irrespective of all of that, we find ourselves now at this moment, and we'll see if this is a blip or it's a transitional moment in this war. We find ourselves at this moment where the village idiot Donald Trump is panicking because nobody's paying attention to his orders anymore. Doesn't mean anything. Israel, shortly after the idiot made his statement that they both have to stop fighting, and then shortly after that, after the Iranians made their statement that they will stop shooting at Israel, assuming Israel does not fire on in Lebanon again, and then shortly thereafter, there's ample reporting that Israel hit Lebanon again. So it's clear. If nothing else is clear, I mean, there's a lot that's clear to me, but I think maybe there are folks that would argue with me. But if nothing else is clear and is irrefutable, it's that Donald Trump is weak. We all knew that. But now, geopolitically, when it comes to a war, he is at the weakest moment that he's ever been at. The whole world sees how weak he is right now. Even if everything stops now, even if the Israelis say, "Okay, we hit Lebanon one more time after you told us not to," and even if Iran takes a breath and decides to contain itself, the implication that Donald Trump is absolutely the weakest world leader at this time, the weakest world leader, is irrefutable. It's just life. It's just the world we live in at this moment. The sycophants on his cabinet, Marco Rubio, well, Kushner isn't speaking right now, but Scott Bessent, because the Treasury Department is talking about the war lately, about his participation in it. Fox News pundits, right-wing media, extremists. It doesn't matter, because again, it just doesn't change. It doesn't. No matter what they say, it doesn't change what happened. It doesn't change the reality. No country in the world is afraid of the United States anymore. As of this moment, too, I believe that if there was anyone on the fence, if there was any nation that was still sort of on the fence that they're going to do whatever the fuck they want, any way they want, as often as they want, and as frequently as they want, and they don't need to worry about the U.S. being a deterrent, they're going to do it. And they're going to do it with they're gonna have free reign to go do whatever the hell they want. I even imagine the Cubans today are probably breathing a sigh of relief although while other people are dying, which is insane, but I think the Cubans are probably breathing a sigh of relief today, because I think they probably know, after watching today's events, after watching the Israelis deny Donald Trump's order to stand down, they probably realize how weak Donald Trump is at this point. And if the U.S. were to invade, although they cannot outmatch us with military power, they really couldn't put up much of a fight at all, at least from the reporting I've seen. And the government is halfway in shambles in Cuba. The Cuban people are incensed and they're frustrated. But I would imagine that the government officials there are gaming out their Iran-like response. What is it? They don't have a Strait of Hormuz there, but I'm sure they are looking at, in terms of coming up with a strat. They probably understand, as of today, that they could outthink, they could outflank, and they could outmanipulate Donald Trump, Pete Hegseth, Bill Pulte, the idiot who's the new the acting director of national intelligence, John Radcliffe, the CIA director, Marco Rubio. They can maneuver, manipulate, outflank, outthink, out-PR, and outwit the entire brain trust of the United States, Pete Hegseth, of the United States of America. And I'm sure, as they're preparing for a potential invasion, which the village idiot has been telling us he plans to do it one way or another, I'm sure they're fully prepared to manipulate him and to win. And like Iran has won this war. And the other reason for that I feel this way, and again, feel free to disagree with me. I'm not afraid to be wrong. I'm wrong all the time. So I'm willing to be called out on this. But the other reason I think that they see this so effectively, and the U.S. looks so weak, is because while all this is happening in Iran, while the Israelis are attacking Lebanon and blowing up babies and women, in addition to Hezbollah fighters, and just creating, engaging in war crimes, while they are actively still engaged in a genocide in Gaza, while the Iranians are actively firing on the Israelis in response to the Israelis firing on Lebanon, while the Israelis are responding by hitting Iranian military installations, the U.S., which is supposedly still at war with Iran, the U.S. military is just sitting in the water, watching, just sitting in the water, blocking boats from coming in and out of Iran. That's it. They're doing nothing. They're doing nothing to stop the genocide. Just watching it. Hey guys, keep killing people and keep murdering Palestinians. We can't do. And I'm not saying that the soldiers are happy about this. I don't mean to belittle our soldiers, because I'm not. I'm belittling the Donald Trump, the goofballs around him, General Kane, Admiral, I can't think of his name right now, but the leadership structure at the absolute top of the flow chart when it comes to the U.S. military. Our soldiers are just being used as pools and tawns, and they're being pawns, and they're being humiliated. But at the at the leadership level, which there is no leadership, because it's leadership based on the whims of an actual crazy fucking person, we're just sitting there doing nothing, wasting money, wasting fuel, wasting resources, tiring out our Marines, exhausting our naval, our naval personnel, sitting there blocking Iran from getting from cargo ships coming in and out. And meanwhile, we know that there's been credible reporting that the Iranians are receiving supplies from China, from Pakistan, through land routes right now. There's all, and the Village Idiot keeps telling us it's fantastic. We're gonna destroy them because we have it in place. We have it in place. We have the blockade. It's an incredible blockade. I don't think the blockade is doing that much, because the Iranian, as much as they're telling us that the idiots and our media is telling us that the blockade is destroying Iran's economy, Iran is still sitting. They're retaliating. They're sitting. They're managing. They're being strategic. So either they are on a suicide mission right now, an economic suicide mission, if we're led to believe that, or they're not as bad off economically as the Village Idiot says they are. And since the Village Idiot is wrong about everything, and watching this, what's the word that I'm looking for when you don't have to do something right away? This lack of, I can't think of the term, but whatever the term is, I can't think of it. Watching this sort of lack of, imminent need to shift out of the situation, it sure as hell seems like the Iranians are, maybe they're not fine, but they're not being choked financially. It just doesn't feel that way to me. We'll see what happens. Anyway, let me read some of that was my babble about this. Let me read some of the reporting about it. I just want to check the chats. Hey guys, hey Gail, how are you? Irish Aggie, good to see you. They should all be ashamed and they should all be in jail. Yes, Gail. I wonder, I heard a report today, or maybe I read it. I don't know. I consume so much news. But I came across a report somewhere today talking about how the urgency, thank you, Gail, a sense of urgency. I came across a report today about how Donald Trump is kind of burning through the immunity that the Supreme Court offered him. He's committing so many crimes. And if you remember, I know I'm on a little bit of a tangent here, but if you remember, the Supreme Court decision that gives the Village Idiot absolute immunity gives him absolute immunity from actions that he takes as president, not personal actions, not things to benefit him personally. So, for example, he never would have been immune from prosecution had you not had Eileen Cannon as the judge, the corrupt, Trump-loving judge in Florida on the classified documents case. If that would have gone to trial and he would have been convicted of that, the absolute immunity rule wouldn't have helped him, because it would have been clear he was no longer president of the United States. He took those files, stole those files, and refused to return them for his personal benefit. And the immunity clause that the Supreme Court offered him doesn't protect him from that. There's a question that would have been lingering, that would have been settled by the courts if Jack Smith if the Village Idiot hadn't gotten elected yet, again, a second time, and Jack Smith wouldn't have had to, in essence, let go of the case against him, the January 6th case in Washington, D.C., right? If the idiot would have gone to trial about that and would have been convicted for that case, whatever his consequence would have been, there would have been a question that the courts would have had to settle whether or not the immunity clause that the Supreme Court provided for the Village Idiot Donald Trump, whether or not that clause would have protected him, because the argument being made was this was something that Donald Trump was not doing in his public capacity as president. He was campaigning to be president again. And that is a private act. It's not a public act. So it would have been interesting to see, like genuinely interesting to see how that would have played out in the courts if he were convicted. But of course, we never got there. But the reason I'm bringing this up, based on your comment here, is this report that I saw, or this tweet or whatever it was, I don't remember where I saw it, suggesting that the immunity clause was a was that he's burning through his immunity. I think you could. I think after he is no longer president in 2028 or 2029, when the new president is sworn in, you looking at all of these things that he's doing, I think there's going to be heavy debates in the court of law as well as the court of public opinion, whether when we look at all the laws that he's broken, whether or not the get out of jail free card applies to his behavior, whether or not these are personal efforts. And I would take it a step further. I think they know about it. I think Trump, with whatever little bit of marbles he kind of has left in that dysfunctional mind of his, and certainly Todd Blanche knows this because Todd Blanche has recently made the argument that he's doing everything he can now to put up roadblocks now against the prosecution of the village idiot Donald Trump after Trump is out of office. Now, why are they trying to protect him? Well, maybe I'm certain. It seems for me, there's more than enough circumstantial evidence to suggest that Donald Trump raped young girls with Jeffrey Epstein in at least certainly one time, at least two. And if there are two, there are obviously going to be more. But I certainly saw enough in the Epstein files for me personally to have no question that he's a pedophile fucking rapist. No doubt in my mind. So the question, so Blanche is probably protecting him from that. Blanche is probably actively protecting him. The village idiot Donald Trump, Todd Blanche, they probably know. I think, and again, this is total speculation, but I don't think it's unreasonable. I think it's highly likely that we've just seen the tip of the iceberg of the crimes they've committed. I mean, the crime of covering up the Epstein, the crime of the Department of Justice not releasing 2.5 to 3 million additional Epstein files. That's a crime. The Epstein Transparency Act is a law. There's no tiptoeing around the law. There's none. They are all committing crimes. They may all be prosecuted for that. Todd Blanche, Pam Bondi, Kash Patel, Donald Trump, and whoever else, right? They may all be committed. They may all find themselves facing an investigation and facing justice, potentially, just for that crime. Is that a crime I think anybody would go to jail for? Highly doubt it, but you never know. You never know because there's never been an Epstein Transparency Act. There's never been, to my knowledge, an act, a law that's ever been needed that's anything like that. It's nothing like that. So, we'll have to see what happens. But I think they are laying the groundwork to protect him because I think they even see and know the crimes we know about, the crimes we don't know about. That Donald Trump, that the immunity clause very well may not protect him. And when we take it back to the topic of discussion right now, crimes against humanity, war crimes, I think, it might be hard to prove that those are personal, but then again, maybe not. So, we'll see what happens. Patty Ann, oh yeah, I'm sure we don't know half of the evil he and all of them have done. We don't. I can't even imagine what we know is so egregious. What the fuck? How, and again, how much do we? It's unthinkable. I think what else has happened? What other criminal behavior had they've engaged in? Fast and Furious crime spree. But then we have SCOTUS, Gail. That's a fair point. And I don't want to get into my thoughts on the Supreme Court and reforming the court and all that other stuff. We'll save that for another day. Anyway, let me before I wrap this short afternoon live, what I'd like to do, if you guys will indulge me, is I'd like to read a little bit of the actual news so we can kind of get up to date. We'll check out NBC News and Al Jazeera, their news tickers, just to make sure everything, because this is a fast-moving story, things may have changed now from what they were when I began this live. Make sure, keep me honest. If there's anything I fucked up, I'll own up to it for sure, in terms of real things and facts. If any of my opinions are way off, I'll adjust them. But let's see. So here we go. So 10 minutes ago, Israel attacked 12 locations across Iran. The Red Cross Crescent Society says. Now let's see if they're talking about now or over the evening. The Iranian Red Crescent Society said Israel has attacked 12 locations across Iran, but the strikes had not caused any casualties or deaths. Quote, all rescue and relief bases, as well as the Society's Emergency Operations Center, are on standby. Motajba Khaledi, a spokesperson for the country's primary humanitarian relief organization, said on X. Again, I don't know if they're referring to now or if this was the overnight attacks. Sirens sound in northern Israel, so that's now. Right? This is what I mean by this is after the idiot told everybody to stop firing. The Iranians then said a few hours later they will stop firing if there's no more attacks on Lebanon. Israelis didn't say anything. It's just a short time after that, we got reports that the Israelis hit Lebanon again. So perhaps as of 29 minutes ago, perhaps the Iranians retaliated, as they said they were going to do. Sirens sound off in the area of Zirit, the Israeli military said in initial review. Details about the incident in the area of northern Israel, which sits just south of the Lebanese border, are under review. So we don't know if the sirens are sounding because of Hezbollah fire or because of, let me just see, hopefully I have a tissue because my nose is running. Allergies. Hang on, guys, don't go away. It would be disgusting for me to sit here with this. Just don't go away. I should be better prepared, but you guys know I'm not. All right, guys, I'm back. I don't actually need the headphones on. I'm not running any video. So I don't know where those strikes are coming from. Strikes highlight asymmetry in power dynamics between the U.S. and Israel. Experts say Israel's decision to attack Iran after Trump said publicly he would urge Netanyahu not to retaliate highlights an asymmetry in the power dynamics between the U.S. and Israel. One expert told NBC News this morning, quote, there's an asymmetry in these dynamics where obviously Israel is dependent and beholden to the United States. But, simultaneous to that, Netanyahu is thinking about his own political career. And I think it's not just his political career, it's his personal liberty, because once again, just a week ago or 2 weeks ago, his corruption trial was delayed again for security reasons. There's a blah, 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 blah. Netanyahu is thinking about his own political career. Sanam Vakil, director of the Middle East and North Africa program at the London-based think tank Chatham House, said in a phone interview, quote, this is an election year. And from a domestic and Israeli security perspective, he has to respond. Vakil said of Netanyahu, quote, if he doesn't, he looks like a proxy of the United States, and that won't play out for him well personally. Pakistan Prime Minister, strikes show danger of a tenuous ceasefire. That's like a nothing comment. Photos of Iranian missile debris lands in southern Syrian countryside. I've already seen this image. If you haven't seen it yet, I've seen it like all over social media. There is, this image with these two guys stand. But if it's in southern Syria, because it's interesting, you really have to watch what you see on the internet, because if it landed in southern Syria, I had seen a picture of two Orthodox Jews posing near this missile right next to it, but that wouldn't be particularly likely in southern Syria. So I think I saw a manipulated picture. I would trust these images. Iran fired approximately 30 missiles, Israeli military tells NBC. So this was 2 hours ago, but I think they were referring to last night, but let's see. Israel fired approximately 30 missiles. Oh, no, at Israel this morning, although most of them were shot down. Israel's military, it could have been this morning, like 2 in the morning. I'm not sure what they're saying. Iran's Revolutionary Guard released its video, which it said showed the launches, although NBC cannot verify the footage. Within hours, the Israeli military responded by hitting a petrochemical plant. Okay, that's the firing from last night. Iran's still engaged in diplomacy and defense, the president says. And this is why I think Iran is, I told you earlier in the live, in my opinion, I think when the village idiot first made the announcement, everybody needs to stop shooting right now. I am Donald, and I'm demanding it. You better stop. I think the Iranians were not listening to Donald Trump's order because they clearly are not afraid of him. But I think they have a strategic intent. They are looking to confuse, manipulate, and manage the idiot. They throw him off guard. He doesn't understand what you say on a good day when it's something simple. But when you send complex mixed messages, there's no way he can possibly process that in his mind. So, for example, if the Iranians say, they fire the missiles, then they say, then they say that they will stop firing at the Israelis as long as the Israelis don't hit Lebanon, knowing full well that the Israelis will hit Lebanon again. You can game that out because it's predictable. Because obviously Israel is not going to stop. Whatever Israel's end game is in Lebanon, which I honestly have no fucking clue, but whatever it is, they're too far into it to stop whatever they want to achieve. I mean, I have a clue, but I don't know if my clue is correct. I mentioned that earlier, what they are earlier in the live. But the Iranians, only Donald Trump is too dumb to know what's going to happen next. So the Iranians, could get themselves to look like the victims. And in essence, they are, right? They to be the victim, to look like the victim, and actually be the victim in this case. Let Israel look like the aggressors. Confuse Donald Trump by bombing, threatening to bomb again, but saying that they're still interested in diplomacy. That sets that addled brain, I think, into a tizzy. And I think I literally think they are playing games with Donald Trump. And on their own end, they are gaming out what these games mean. So let me just take a quick look over at Al Jazeera's updates. Let's just see, because a lot of times Al Jazeera is going to have a quicker update on what's happening in real time than U.S. news outlet. Well, Al Jazeera is a U.S. news outlet. I think they're a U.S. news outlet, or they have a U.S. news. I have to look that up because I'm not sure. I'm not sure if Al Jazeera is a U.S. news outlet that is centered on Middle Eastern news from a perspective that isn't necessarily pro-Israeli, or if they are a foreign news outlet that just has agency here in the U.S. I'm honestly not sure. I wish if Gamer was here, I know he would know that. Israel escalates arrest of Palestinian women in occupied West Bank. So Israel is the Palestinian Prisoner Society says Israel sharply escalated its targeting of Palestinian women across the occupied West Bank, with 95 now held in Israel's network of prisons and detention camps. The number matches levels previously recorded during the height of Israel's genocide in Gaza. It said, underscoring an unprecedented arrest campaign against Palestinian women. Why? I guess the Israelis will argue that these women are terrorists. I don't know. I don't know the story of these women, but I don't trust the Israeli government anymore, and I will not give them the benefit of the doubt in any instance. So I'd like to find out why. But I know this isn't the hyper focus of this live, but it's an important story. Let's just read through it. So just so we all know about it. In a statement, the society said Israeli forces arrested 3 women on Monday from Kobar, northwest of Ramallah, Jenin City, and the Afin refugee camp in Nablus. One of those detained was the wife of a prisoner. Last week, Israeli forces also arrested 4 Bitzeret University students and transferred them to Al Maskbia Detention Center. A young woman with a physical disability was also detained in Ramallah. The Prisoner Society said the testimonies from female detainees points to violations include beatings, abuse, and humiliation tactics. It's interesting because as I was having a debate with a former professor of mine who is from a Jewish studies college about this, who is appalled by my position on this matter, because this person just does not have the ability to break out of this person's limited bubble of only getting news that shows that Israel is not aggressive. And this person thinks like many American Jews do, and I've talked about this a lot, that if you stand up to the Israeli government and you criticize them, that you're not being a good Jew, that Israel they couldn't possibly be engaged in a genocide. So this person, though, made the argument to me that that they're just, and again, this is a PhD, right? This is a longtime academic or researcher. This is not like somebody who doesn't value reasoned thinking. And this person actually argued that my thinking on the matter is lazy. This person told me that you can't trust, in essence, you can't trust any of this stuff because the people on the ground are terrorists. The people who are reporting about this, in this instance, I mean, this person wasn't talking about this instance, but I think I can speak effectively saying that the person would make the argument that it's this society, this Palestinian prisoner society, are basically just terrorists anyway. And what do terrorists do? They just lie. That this is Hamas, and Hamas lies, and therefore you can't believe them. This person was referring to, in this case, to, aid organizations like Oxfam and the UN aid organization and others that we believe, they were happy to believe them when they were talking about genocide in Sudan and other places, but not when it's Israel engaged in the genocide. But that's another story for another day. Anyway, I'm off. I know I'm off on a tangent here. Saudi Arabia says reports of missile attack on air base are not true, so I didn't even know. The spokesperson for Saudi Arabia's defense ministry says reports about the Prince Sultan air base being targeted or attacked are untrue. Iran's new strategy of deterrence forces the U.S. Israel to think twice. I'm just looking for hard news. That's why I'm not the analysis. I'm not. I just want us to get hard news to make sure I've got everything correct for you guys. Israel's new strategy. Oh, I read that already. Sirens sound off in northern Israel as attacks continue on Lebanon. We read that before on NBC News, so we know that that's correct. Iraq reopens airspace after Iran ends attacks on Israel. So that's some news. So maybe that's indicative of the fact that maybe things will stop. At least maybe Iran will stop attacking. But again, I can't imagine they will, with Israel just continuing on with its attacks in Lebanon. And Pakistani Prime Minister, and we covered that before. So I think that's it for this morning's live. I just want to let you guys know. I know last week I wasn't. There weren't as many live streams. I was kind of vacillating between lives and shorter recorded episodes. I didn't realize it next week. I would have announced it had I known it, but I just needed a break last week, and I apologize for not letting you guys know that I was kind of on a break and off a break. But I guess I think I just hit a wall last week. I think the difficulty in covering this stuff, which is not easy to do, but is necessary. I think when I combine that with the pressure that I've been putting on myself to grow and effectively monetize, I think last week it just really hit I realized for my own wellness, I needed to kind of back off a little bit. And I didn't, it's not like I didn't do any work, but I kind of took a little mini vacation each day. And I've been watching on and off for months now, and I finally just binge watched. There's a show on Netflix, which is the last fucking thing I should have been watching now, called Designated Survivor, which is all about terrorism and blowing up the United States and the government and the president and all that other shit. But the guy on there is a good president. But I watched a lot of that last week, and I did a lot of meditating, a lot of journaling. And it really did take a bit of a break. I took a little hit for it because I did lose some subs on Substack, some paid subs, and I understand that. I never ever would feel bad against someone. I mean, everybody's just trying to hang on to whatever you got right now with inflation soaring and the price of gas and the idiot in the White House. So when I'm not delivering, if people pull out, I would do the same damn thing. So I don't blame them. But it's a trade-off that I had to do because I just needed to kind of reset. And so that's why, if you may have noticed, I was probably more than a little bit less around, that's why. But I'd like to normally plan those out and not just halfway disappear on everyone. So my apologies for that. Thank you, Patty Ann. Yes, Patty Ann. Self care. Take a break. I know that you're an we talk about that. Have talked about that quite a bit. So I can't preach it if I don't live it. A little bit. So thank you, guys. And Patty Ann has asked me too if you guys have been wondering where our Saturday wellness lives are that we were doing for a while. That was me. I just was doing. I just couldn't keep up with it, so I sort of temporarily, asked Patty Ann that we're just going to have to put them on hold for a bit. But I do hope we can, we can find our way back to those soon. I do want to do that really soon, and I'm sort of coming back now, energized and refocused a little bit, and I think one of the things I'm going to be doing now is focusing a little bit less on growth. I spent the last 5 months just dialed in on trying to grow this this community, this platform, the financial part of Xenocracy, and I had minimal success, but there was success, and so I'm not going to say that I haven't had any. I think for the short term future, I'm just going to come on and do content for a little bit and let growth. I put a lot of in that when I was doing that intense work, I put a lot of tools in to grow, and now it's time to kind of just refocus on content a little bit, and and let those tools work or not work. And not that I'm going to totally take my eye off the ball in terms of strategies and different ways to try to grow the community and build wealth within the community, but the tension, the stress, and the hyper focus on it through the week that I took to kind of take a breath and catch my breath. I realized that it's time to pivot away from that a little bit and focus more on the work itself. So that's the plan, Stan. So thank you, guys. Thank you for your support and your kind words, and let's just keep doing it, right? 1 minute at a time, 1 hour at a time, 1 day at a time, 1 live at a time. This is how we do it. We just keep chunking through it. We breathe when we have to, right? And then we just keep chunking through it. I love you guys. I thank you for being here. Watch for social, post on regular socials today, and hopefully I get to squeeze in the video post for all the socials today as well. The long form video post. If you are not currently a subscriber, please, whether you're on YouTube or whether you're on Substack, please subscribe. If it's something that's comfortable for you on Substack and that you're interested in, please consider a paid subscription as well. I love you guys, and I'll see you soon. Thank you so much for being here. I've got to kind of shut each social media platform when I'm going live down one at a time. So you're just going to see me sort of look this way and click buttons until, I'm gone for now. I'll see you soon, guys. Love you. YouTube, you're first because you're just on the bottom of the list. Not that you're on the bottom of the list, but I have that. You know what I mean. Don't worry about it. Love you guys. Okay, Twitch. If there's anybody here on Twitch, we'll see you soon. You're out. And last but not least, Substack. I love you guys. I'll see you in a little bit.